So let's get started. Thanks for joining us, everybody. This is the last session of the day, and I've been told because of that we have permission to extend this out to about 3 hours. So buckle up,
right?
Get excited. There's coffee there if you need to stay awake. But in all seriousness, thanks for joining us at the end of this very busy day. I hope your day so far has been as filled with connection and conversation and new ideas as mine. And we'll keep it short and sweet and to the point. And having worked with these speakers before, I know it's going to be great, and I'm very much looking forward to getting into the weeds with them. So a little bit of note about this session. I'm John Clace. I lead the customer education and enablement team at Tulip, and I'll be the moderator for this panel, Next Level Quality Programs, Best Practices, and Lessons Learned. So really the idea behind this panel came from some observations we had working with all of you and our customers and just general observations out in the market. And the first is really practical. And sort of at this moment, there are a lot of manufacturers who are feeling more pressure than ever to drive performance through quality. So there's just a big sense of urgency around all of the metrics around quality, reducing scrap and rework, paying attention to recalls, all of those things that really get pushed on to quality teams. And the second is, I think, a little bit less obvious, but more interesting, and what I'm really looking forward to hearing from the panelists about. And that's if you sort of like change your perspective on quality and really put it at the center of operations, it has a transformational effect. And these are three people who are doing that. They've created really great results they've created really great results. So without further ado, let me introduce our panel. So we have Matt Rinaldo, Abigail Tingley, and Ian Evans, and I will let them introduce themselves a little bit more, and then we'll jump right into it. So Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you make, etc.
All right. My name's Matt Rinaldo. I have a background in quality engineering, process engineering, and quality analytics. I went to school for organizational excellence and organizational leadership. And 7 years ago, I joined Veka. And Veka is a window designer and extruder for window fabricators. So we're a business-to-business model. And it is the company's been in place for about 41 years, so it's definitely a legacy company. And part of the journey I'll talk about today is stepping into a legacy company that was completely paper-based, and how we started our transition through quality and transforming that from like a change agent into bringing it into the 21st century and having that digital revolution.
Abigail.
I'm Abigail Tingley. I'm a development manufacturing engineer at Airborne. We are based in Georgetown, Texas, which is about half hour north of Austin. I am out of their Erie, Pennsylvania facility. We manufacture electrical components such as connectors, wire harnesses, power supplies, PCBs in the military and aerospace sector. I have been with Airborne since 2021, which was my first internship. I returned back in 2022, and then upon my graduation in 2022, I accepted a full-time role. So my role in the company is really focused on the Tulip implementation and our digital transformation.
Hi, my name is Ian Evans. I'm a business system analyst at Boston Dynamics. We make basically world-class robots. We have a dog, we have a warehouse robot, we also have a humanoid that we're working on as a development platform. We are kind of a odd company in transition, which is fairly important to kind of how we're viewing quality at the moment. We have long been an R&D company trying to research new technology. We have recently, in the past few years, started to go towards production at the same time as development. So building our quality systems just kind of from the ground up as we build supporting business processes around it.
Thank you, everybody. So I love the title of this panel, but I also think it's kind of vague, and I want to understand what you all define as next level quality. Like in your own terms, what does that mean to you?
So yeah, next level quality. I think from my perspective, next level quality is transitioning out of like a real stereotypical, inspect the part and get away from just inspecting the product itself into what is quality holistically as an organization, because that bleeds into the customer expectation and performance. So it's more than just the part itself. It's really bleeding together the digital, the physical, and the people into a system that works together. And yeah, being deeper than just inspecting a part, making sure that it's people-centric.
Yeah, I think for me, it's, same to what Matt said, but to kind of build off that, it's something that everybody believes in every step of the way. It's not just an afterthought, not the last, person at the line before the product leaves the building. It's something that every single person that touches that product, that is planning for that product to get onto the floor, everybody involved is thinking about quality rather than being an afterthought, and to the point that it becomes part of the company culture and really makes its way to the front lines.
Yeah, I'd have to echo what Abby and Matt said. For me, it's kind of trying to incorporate quality as one of the central themes of your business and making it kind of one of those forefront pieces of thought to everybody. And using, like, you can put technology, you can do all the digitalization around that to make it easier for them, but really just driving home quality is one of the key things you need to think about.
So, Abigail, I want to return to something you just said there, which is that quality is something everyone believes in at every step of the way. So having that as like sort of a desired endpoint means that not everybody believes that right now, that there's sort of a tension between quality and manufacturing, or there can be. So can you talk about that? Can you talk about when you've experienced that tension and where you think it comes from?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, there, at least in my experience, there's been some tension between manufacturing and quality, and I think it's because quality now, the way that we think about quality is it's an inconvenience. It's inconvenient to the operator because it means that they have to change the way that they're currently doing things or thinking about things. It adds time, which from a manufacturing perspective would add cost. But if you really start to think about it and integrate quality, it starts saving you money because you don't have the scrap, you don't have the rework. So I think a big focus of mine is to kind of try and spin quality so that it's not manufacturing versus quality, it's manufacturing and quality, meshed together, understanding each other's perspectives, and prioritizing quality.
Yeah, I just want to kind of agree with you right there. I'm sure everyone else in this room, or maybe most of you, have had the production versus quality fight before. And I think I know when I joined our company, it was definitely the quality police, right? And how could I not get caught was the kind of the culture we had when I started. And yeah, it was really hard to get past that. You're stopping me from getting product out the door and trying to change that mindset into, well, it's not about product out the door, it's about good product performing for the customer. And we need to match and marry that together. So I definitely had a similar experience.
So absolutely, and I think one of the themes that's come out when we've talked together before, then it'll come out more, is that it's a journey. It's something that changes over time. And I also think it's something that's changing over time. So Ian, I know you've worked at a lot of companies that have a lot of different stages of maturity. Can you talk about how you've seen the role of quality evolve in the last couple of years?
Yeah, sure. So when I started in quality, we were the bad guys. We stopped the process. We made everything slower. Can we just go sit in the corner, please? But, I moved on from this kind of older role company to a newer company where they were kind of trying to bring this change about, where quality was one of the central concepts. Still a lot of paper-driven processes, a lot of old processes, which granted were very robust, but made it so that a lot of the important factors for quality, data collection, knowing your first pass yields, was a little bit harder to come by. So, and now I've gone full circle where I'm in a company where we're trying to do all of this basically at the same time. We're building our business processes as we're like trying to develop a robot, trying to market and sell a robot. So we're able to like really wrap the quality as one of the central cores to what we're doing.
Excellent. And so one of the things you're all describing is like sort of being change agents, but also doing a lot of creative work to sort of make quality feel central to digital transformation. And Matt, I know you did something interesting, which is you went from being director of quality to then thinking about your role more as operational excellence and digital transformation in Industry 4.0 more broadly, which feels almost like Trojan horsing it. Can you talk a little bit more about when you realized there was a need to think about quality differently?
Okay, so quick story. My boss at the time I had worked with previously and poached me and pulled me over to Veka, and we had a great relationship. And 2 weeks into the job, he sat me down and was like, "All right, Matt, 2 weeks in, what do you think?" And I said, "Everything is broken." I said, "It's so scary." I said, "I don't know why I came here. I don't know how we make money. I don't know how we do anything." So like 2 weeks in, I was like pretty sure we needed to make a change. Our MES didn't report into anything. It was kind of in it by itself. It never really connected to the ERP. Our quality system was Excel based. And it was like the people with the most knowledge on the floor won. They won all the fights. They won everything. So yeah, it was pretty early on that I recognized that. So, but like anything, change is slow. So him and I started like working together, doing some digital transformation that was outside of Tulip, just to build some foundational, best practices. But then, as I continue to customer interface, I'm not sure how many of you customer interface or not. As I would have to go face to face with our customers and talk about our product performance, it was really disheartening for me to have it end there, and listen to them complain about how that product works, and then try and hand it off to operations or some sort of engineering to fix it. But they didn't have as much of a vested interest in doing that because they didn't see what the customer saw and felt. So that was really the moment when we really took that leap into saying we need to make this a holistic process, and our system has to be holistic. It can't just be me interfacing, getting out at a customer, and it can't just be the operator on the floor dealing with scrap. Because that's the other thing that I saw was these operators that were frustrated. They didn't want to make scrap, right? But like, who's listening and fighting for them? So we changed our mindset, and that's where actually in the front row here, Pranav, he's our first hire as a process engineer, and that's how we started our transition into like organizational excellence. So tying together the voice of the customer, including our operators as customers, and understanding how that all relates to the product performance, and then being a champion for them. So both for all customers, and that's kind of how we transitioned and started that journey in rethinking about quality holistically.
Yeah, absolutely. So for you, it began with looking at the company and then going to the customers and then realizing we need to move beyond just the mandate of quality and think about the entire company. I'm interested, Abigail and Ian, like how did you go about making quality more central to operations?
So when we started with Tulip, we were in kind of a unique situation where we were trying out Tulip for the first time. It was our first deployment, and we were starting a new product line, and we decided to implement Tulip onto that product line. So we were building our first apps and deployments as we're figuring out how to build this product. So from the get-go, we were implementing quality checks, various parameters that needed to be checked and validations and that sort of thing. So from there, we've been able to kind of prove the value of meshing it all together, and seeing the importance that it has based off of the success of that product line. We've produced thousands of these, and we've had one quality escape to a customer, so pretty good stats. Kind of speaks for itself as to the need for more of that throughout the company, not just on these showcase product lines or these flagship product lines, but everywhere.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've been trying to do is meeting with the operators, trying to push quality and trying to push kind of following the app, trying to do these best practices. Our MRB rack is empty. We're not scrapping nearly as many parts. We're not reworking robots much further down the line because we're catching it early, or we're instituting processes where that escape wouldn't have happened in the first place. And realistically, people are looking at it, it's like, wow, I have so much more time to actually just do these other things. It's a lot easier to just build it right the first time. And, you know, we can even talk about it. It's like we build more, we build them accurately, we make more money as a company, and realistically, that benefits you. So I always try to bring in the what goes into your back pocket conversation, because that's something that really kind of comes across for people.
And Ian, I think you're actually in an interesting position right now where you're at a company where it's a little bit more in flux, and you're actually scaling while things are going into production, and you're working out your processes while you're working out the designs. Can you talk about some of the challenges that come with doing quality in that environment?
The biggest one are changes. So we're constantly evolving the product, changing the product. So trying to make sure that all of these pieces are represented correctly to our factory floor and our technicians, as well as that we're capturing everything that needs to be captured to quality. So we average about 8 to 16 ECOs per week to all of our various types of robotics, which is a lot for, you know, to really have that kind of like robust production.
Excellent. So one through line that's coming up is like quality is a team sport. And even earlier on, Abigail, you mentioned that part of the challenge is actually going to the operators and getting their input and talking to them and learning about their experience as you go through this process together. So can you talk about how you push changes to the front line, like what your process is there?
Yeah, I like to use the analogy of when a parent takes vegetables that their kid doesn't want to eat, and they chop them up and they hide them in the dinner, so the kid doesn't necessarily know. I think that's been kind of a really helpful approach for us. Not that our operators can't see the quality checks, not that they don't know that they're not, you know, they know that they're there. But when they're coming in and building these things and it's just part of it, I think it helps a lot with the buy-in from the floor, and helps a lot with the push to the floor. And then, of course, the other part of getting quality checks to the front lines is tribal knowledge and overcoming that. And something that we have seen as we are expanding our Tulip deployments is operators that have been with our company for 20, 30 years and have been building parts based off of what they remember, you know, notebook in their pocket that they've been building off of for however long. We definitely got some pushback from them at first, especially with, you know, digitizing and getting quality checks in there. And what we ended up having happen is we would have new operators coming in, and these operators that have, you know, that are seasoned, that have been there, coming to the engineers and saying, hey, I know like your Tulip app isn't completely done yet, but we have this new guy that we need to train. Can you wheel it out here? And they started to see the benefit of it firsthand, and now, you know, they're excited about it. They're excited about new deployments. So just kind of a show and tell.
So, Ian or Matt, any additional stories about pushing to the front line?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I think Abigail nailed it, but I think touching on, like, as you were talking about, you know, having that tribal knowledge and the operators having their notebooks. I know for us at our company, we have this one guy, his name is Zane, and he just knows everything. He literally does. He's fabulous. But he understood our product and how our product works, and he became like the go-to for any quality decision, right? Like Zane is the guy who blessed your quality. And I remember like I had a post-it. It was like shortly after I worked, and it was like Zane's brain to the floor. And that just was like my my inspiration every day to be like, how do I take Zane and like turn it into essentially an application, right? Or our center of excellence is really what we turned it into. But yeah, like that. So I like resonate with what you said there a ton. And yeah, I remember that was, for us, that was, it was huge. Zane's brain to the floor.
So another challenge other than just pushing to the floor is always proving the value. So Ian, you mentioned that when you're having conversations with stakeholders, it's always like, what is this doing for the bottom line, or how is it lining the back pocket? So Matt, I know you've thought a lot about ROI. Would you mind talking a little bit about how you think about ROI?
Oh, yeah. So I think specifically with Tulip, it was really important for us to have a win early. So, I have a, okay, you see this amazing graphic? So it's really simple, but it actually does speak volumes. So we had, talking about ROI, it was really important for us to tackle a key problem, and so we could actually have Tulip become a deeper solution for the company as a whole. So I'll share with you, because it's a safe space, that we have an extremely embarrassing escape as a company where our number one quality defect is the wrong label on our material escaping to our customers, which is super sad that it's not even a defect in the part itself. But it's extremely costly. And it's because it's not a defect in the part, it was like swept under the rug for years and years and years. But it cost us tons of money. And inside of a black box, it just wasn't even being measured really. But what this is looking at is in 2022, we started to develop and understand and digitize what we're doing a little bit as we took the approach to control our quality. And what we really did was the mindset that we started to change in how we use Tulip as a tool was the concept of our product being considered guilty until proven innocent. Because up to that point, if it was in Iraq, it was being sold. ERP was a go. And so what we did was in 2023, where you can see our rate, that's a rate by day. So we were making an error 1.5 times per day, down to 1 times, 1.12. And then we cut it down by doing an administrative check. And then what we did in launching this year was we implemented that innocent until proven guilty inside of the Tulip application that connects to the ERP, and it controls all of our product, and it forces that first piece inspection and that product performance to was that Ryan? To be validated. So we still have a couple escapes that occur that are part of the manual process, but Tulip completely eliminated the digital side and matched us up with what's in our ERP to what's being manufactured on the floor real time to being controlled. And that's like a big theme for us is like, how do we control the inventory to protect our customer?
So that last note is interesting, that these systems sit at the intersection of a lot of different technologies, and sometimes the integrations can be critical, and they're critical to understanding and making sure data flows across. And Ian, I know you've done a lot of work thinking about integrations and quality, both with Tulip and outside of it. Would you mind talking about integrations and sort of how you manage that from the R&D and quality side?
Yeah, so integrations is kind of one of the central themes that we're looking at. We have integrated our Tulip with our ERP. We use Jira for problem reporting. So a lot of the systems have been unified so that if a part doesn't pass quality muster, it's not necessarily going to be at a place where somebody could try to sell it. If there is a problem, it's automatically creating a Jira ticket with all the information that's tied to that work order, that operator, that time frame, and any parts that are kind of tied to it. And we're trying to do this all like seamlessly so that one of the big problems with a lot of integrations or a lot of systems is you're bouncing from one screen to the next. And we've built everything into Tulip, into that work instruction, so they never have to leave that environment. They're just building.
Excellent. So I'm going to be conscious of time. We have a couple questions left, but before we sort of move into the last questions and then open it up to everybody here for questions, I want to give an invitation to story time real quick. So do each of you have an example of just one time you've incorporated just quality into a process that you think is indicative of the overall approach of this next level quality?
All right, I'll jump in. So yeah, I think from kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about quality and rethinking quality as not just inspecting the part. It's really about process and process control. So one of the things that we did as we kind of implemented this innocent until proven guilty mentality was we also were putting checks upstream before the product was even made. So essentially, in this situation here, as before you can even turn your product into, turn it to production and say, hey, I'm starting to make my product, you have to go through multiple checks now to assure that you have the right die, the right setup, the right bill of materials, all scanned in and consumed before you can even move forward. And what we found is that that is just as important to our final product quality as inspecting it, because once you find the defect, you've already added cost to it, right? So kind of that upstream quality of checking before it actually is bad.
Yeah, kind of a similar application. So we have a sub-assembly that the customer's previous supplier, they would be putting the incorrect pieces into. There are 3 different springs, and they were just putting them, the previous supplier would put them in at different, at the wrong point in the process. So what we did was we implemented an OHAL scale, which is plug and play with Tulip. It was fantastic. Just plug it in and work in the logic text, because there was enough of a difference in the weight of these springs that we could use that to validate that the correct spring had been installed in this assembly at the correct point of the process. And then whenever they go to put that into the top level assembly, which is also run on Tulip, we can say from the upstream that we know that that sub-assembly is correct. Because again, like kind of how you were saying, if we were to catch a defect in that sub-assembly, by the time we got to top level, you're kind of screwed. So yeah, definitely the upstream quality checks have been awesome.
Yeah, we've been instituting a very similar check in any sub-assembly that's going into our top levels, and we have hundreds of sub-assemblies. We have, number of top-level SKUs. But if you have a component, you know that has been tested, it's been quality inspected, validated before it would ever make it onto a completed robot. So you're not putting 8 to 10 hours of additional work doing a teardown repair into that.
So, Ian, let's stay with you over there. Question to all of you, but start with Ian, is what's next? What's next for your quality program?
More integrations for us. We are moving to connected tools, which will respond to Tulip. It won't let you go to the next page of a work instruction until you've hit all of the torques that are valid. That's all being recorded as part of a robot genealogy. We're going to look at more of the vision systems to just kind of like cut down on the amount of quality auditor time that we're taking. We have a lot of quality checks that we're trying to put in, and we have 3 quality inspectors for our entire production line. So they can only be one place at any given moment. So the more we can kind of like automate that process while still making sure it's valid, it's a win for us.
Thank you. Abigail?
I definitely think that we have some integrations on the way, but I would say next for us is going to be implementing quality checks into some of our more simplified builds, some of our more general builds that could be product lines, product families across sites. And the reason I say that is to continue to prove out essentially that what I'm saying isn't completely made up, and that it is really important to work quality into every aspect of it. So rather than this kind of big behemoth that we started and prove the quality checks, to kind of then take it to the lower level and prove the value there as well.
I think for us, our next phase is going to be asset tracking. So as we kind of see, there's still a couple, every 5th day we still have an escape on our one issue. What we're working towards is asset tracking with our packaging and our racks. That will help us eliminate the last portion of that for that problem. And then we're also going to transition to asset tracking to our equipment setup and our bill of materials. Kind of as I mentioned earlier, so that way the asset tracking will be seamless to our production and our quality. Quick, you asked me for a story earlier. I I missed, but a quick story here. We have dies. The way our product works is our material flows through dies. And we actually had a die that was creating a defect inside of the part that was becoming troublesome for our supplier or our customer. And, I think someone said earlier, MES stands for minimize emails and spreadsheets, right? That's exactly what we did. So we sent an email out. We said, please don't bring this to the line again, right? And sure enough, next time that order came up, that same die came out. We made the same defect, hit us again from our customers. So yeah, so we're really excited to get into asset tracking and have that tie into our quality systems, Tulip.
Excellent. Very exciting. Last question before we open it up. So looking forward again, or something that you've recently done, tell me about any new innovative technologies you're thinking about or have recently implemented. Doesn't have to be Tulip. Could be whatever you want.
I'll plug Tulip, though. Ours is inside of Tulip, so we're currently working on launching Copilot within our company. We have a couple different things, so shout out to Ryan in the front row. Ryan just worked with our supplier compound team in introducing a Copilot where they can now scan their documentation in. As that documentation comes in and we record the C of A's from our suppliers, it gets both stored now, one, and two, it actually creates the data table and the check sheet to check against simultaneously. It's saving them a ton of work inside of their lab. It's been great for us from a supplier control perspective. So that's the start of Copilot, and I'm challenging Pranav here to work with our engineering team so we can scan our prints in, and as our part prints get scanned in, it will automatically create the data tables that builds the QMS. So instead of having to go in and manually and add in line by line all the different specifications to that specific SKU and make sure that it's in Tulip, this here would automatically scan it in, build the data tables, then it would get tied to the applications automatically. So the change agent would really just be scanning and submitting the document through Copilot, and your result would be a real-time QMS update.
I know you said it doesn't have to be Tulip, but it's hard when you can integrate everything with Tulip. But gonna kind of copy Matt's answer. Also, Frontline Copilot. Unfortunately, with the environment that we're in, I don't have access to it. I keep bothering your engineers, and I'm gonna keep bothering your engineers. But I would really like to use Copilot for our documentation. We have a lot of documentation in PDFs just about how to do certain steps in the process, and they can be anywhere from 2 pages to 20 pages. One just came out that was like 70 pages. And I would really like to have the ability for operators to be able to stay at their station, be on their Tulip app, and look up through this documentation the answer that they need. Because first of all, it's expecting a lot of them to, first of all, want to go read the 20-page engineerese document, and then to understand it, because I think we all know engineers are not always the easiest to understand, even amongst ourselves. So I would really love to have the ability to just make it so much easier for the operators to reference that documentation, and rather than guessing on how they're supposed to build the part, just look it up, have their answer, and comes back to quality of not guessing and knowing how to do it.
Yeah, I think the big one that we're looking at short term is the vision. Just that's going to be such a huge help for us in catching the defects early. Other than that, trying to just get a better system in place for our inventory management and trying to schedule some automations to do that.
Well, thank you all so far. This has been great getting to hear all these answers and speak with you, but I'm now much more interested to open it up. We have about 10 minutes for questions, so the floor is yours.
What do you guys do to prevent operators from just pushing the button that says pass when they have to do quality checks?
I'll jump in. So if you want more detail, Pranav in the front can give you all the details to it. So one of the things that we've done is we've integrated some of our equipment into the checks themselves. So for example, one of the checks is we have to do a weight piece, at a specific frequency, which includes taking in scales and calipers, right? So the only way now to do your quality check is to use the Tulip app. It has the scale automatically connected into it, so you hit enter on the scale, hit enter on your caliper, and then it automatically gives your output of what your product is. And then one of the things that we learned was don't give them the answer on the app, because you can also manipulate scales, right? So we took the answer away, even though the answer is hidden in the background of Tulip. So when you're done, it just tells you if you're good or not, and it gives you kind of that pass-fail. So that's one example, but we did that with almost all of our quantitative measurements, or actually all of our quantitative measurements. So it only leaves our qualitative checks that are still a little, can be a little skewed.
Yeah, Abigail, you also looked like you were going to jump in.
Yeah, very similar. We have torque values that obviously need to be within spec. So we have an ASG torque driver with a network module connected to it. It's hooked up or attached to a robot that does the torques, and those values are reported straight back to Tulip, so the operator doesn't really get a say.
Anything else?
You all talked about quality in the supply chain and pushing the quality up the supply chain as much as you can. Ian, I guess maybe a question for you. How do you push quality in the product life cycle up the product life cycle? So how do you push that quality in the design phase? Since you're kind of in that transition now between design and manufacturing, and has Tulip helped you in a way to push that as well?
Right now, Tulip we're still kind of like so far in the early stages that hasn't really driven many changes. But right now, the estimation is that by having these automated JIRA tickets, these automated problem reports that are getting designed to engineering, it's creating large-scale bugs that they're looking at, they're noticing. So there's this open communication with design, so they can try to institute these changes. If they see one or two things, they're not going to necessarily pay attention. But if we suddenly give them 30 things and say, hey, this new design doesn't work.
I want to open that up to the other panelists as well if they have any insight.
I don't know. That's a great question. I think we're all trying to continue to figure that one out. I know for us, like I mentioned earlier, our goal was to kind of have Copilot come in and be in that early stage as we go through our different stage gates of our life cycle. But I think it just ties back to some of the other concepts from a quality perspective and from like digital transformation is we need to start actually recording and measuring so we can understand where in our product life cycles we need to start interacting with. And so I would say building that database and using the Copilot up front from a stage gate perspective and a change management perspective, two areas that we're going to be focusing on ourselves.
Any more questions? All right, so it looks like we went from going 2 hours over to, I think, right on time. You could check me on that, but all right. Before we do break, please join me in giving a very warm thank you to our panelists, Ian, Abigail, and Matt.